Yeah, we have an American election, which is very insane. We have logistics, which is going to get worse because, especially Europeans are going to start importing like crazy to stock, and so, you kind of have a little similarity to cacao, which is a rush to buy in
Yeah.
stock. Not because in cacao was because it was going to take 5 years. It's going to take 5 years to produce more. In coffee, it's because of legislation.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Mapper Forward's workshop. It's time to become a coffee consultant. Learn how to diversify your revenue streams and create freedom from your day job while saying goodbye to that alarm clock forever by becoming a consultant within the coffee industry or directly to consumers who have shifted towards home brewing and home roasting. Protect your income from challenging times in the coffee value chain by taking this course today. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 3 of a brilliant 5-part series with Felipe from FAF in Brazil. Now, we are talking about the current coffee crisis from the perspective of a coffee producer, but not just any coffee producer, a coffee producer that understands a lot of different origins, a lot of different consuming countries, travels a lot, is also involved in every part of the supply chain. Now, we have been talking about economics, we've been talking about, different scenarios that have been going on and could play out. We're going to dig deeper into that. Now, as we move into this episode, Felipe, I want us to talk about you talk to your staff and to your customers and to your partners on other farms about 4 specific scenarios. Why don't you lay those 4 specific scenarios out for us? And then we're going to talk about what happens at origin if any of these 4 scenarios eventuate. And just to be clear, folks, these scenarios are not just about if we have coffee or don't have coffee. So please pay attention. If you need to rewind some of this conversation and get your head around it, this series is one of those series where you want to try and understand everything that we're talking about. And if you don't understand some terms, go have a conversation with ChatGPT and say to ChatGPT, could you explain the C market to me, or the ICE exchange, which is what it's technically called? Could you explain the ICE exchange to me as though I'm a 5-year-old? And I'm not even slightly kidding. Ask it to explain it to you that way. And then come back to the podcast and then continue to listen to some of the stuff that Felipe and I are talking about. So Felipe, please go ahead. Tell us what these 4 scenarios are.
Sure. Yeah, Lee, I try and understand what scenario we're in front of us. Mm-hmm. And I try and understand what scenario we could be. I'm always trying to I'm always trying to talk to people about creating a future that we would like to live in, right? And inviting people to take part of that. So, what kind of contracts would we like to do? How would we like to see development and quality and on the farm and together? But that's not what specialty coffee has done. It's just been like, I want samples. And it's just, we got very lazy, I think. And I think now in the last 6 years, I've been training my roasters to, please give me a forecast, before the harvest, give me a forecast in April or whatever. And let's think year on year or even further out. So we can really plan, what we do and nail the best exchange rates, nail the best everything, and stuff like that. But I heard a really interesting thing about psychology, and part of what it said was okay, when we feel when we're living in the past, we get depressed. When we feel anxious, we're usually living in the future and just worried about the future. And when we're in the present and engaged in the present, we're too busy for that shit. We're just locked. So I started feeling really anxious the past few months, and I was like, "What's going on?" I'm living these scenarios. I often do this as running my company. I often think of everything that could go wrong. And I think of my mind just plays out 100 different scenarios going forward. And I start to get anxious and I start to get nervous. So I need to, like, when I get in this mode, I realize it, I meditate and I say, okay, whatever happens, it's happening to everyone. I've controlled everything I can internally. So let me understand the external factors. So the way I reasoned it for right now, what's in front of us right now is, let's say we have 4 scenarios. Scenario A, C market goes down below 240, let's say 2 to 240. The way I'm looking at things, again, guys, I'm not an expert. Don't take my word for it. I'm just a producer.
But you're not an expert either.
I've been 17 years in coffee. It's enough to know that
Right.
I'm not an expert. Okay. Anyways, I'm looking at Vietnam, I'm looking at Ethiopia, I'm looking at all these, I'm looking at demand and supply, and I'm saying, I don't think that by 2026 we will have a stable supply and demand situation. Now, inventories have gone up a little bit, but we've got a whole bunch of mess to get through the next 12 months. I don't see the C market going below $2. I would be very surprised. Let's say scenario B, 240 to 260. That's where we are right now. Scenario C, 260 to 3. And that's not too far off. Scenario D, 3 and above. And potentially 3 and above, looking at what happened with cacao, that could just take off dollar on dollar because of a lot of reasons. So, okay, what's going on at those different scenarios? At $1 a pound, we were such a good value proposition that farmers were like really wanting to do specialty. I mean, willing to invest, planting new varieties, build raised beds, do all these things, which, mind you, don't make sense at all. Like raised beds doesn't make sense at all unless you're in a very humid area. But we've planted Bourbon because roasters want Bourbon. Doesn't make sense at all. Farmers have hit and miss so much because they were so willing to hit that target. Now, at 250, farmers are quitting specialty.
Can I stop you on that for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a really important thing that you just said. At 250, farmers are quitting specialty.
Yeah.
Can we just dissect very slightly there the fundamentals of that intersection point? Because what you've done there is you've put a pin in it and told the industry, or given us a scenario that is eventuating in real life, what the breaking point is for producers to decide that the value proposition of what specialty coffee is just isn't worth it anymore. And what that says to me as somebody who, coaches people in business is that we have a hard number now that tells the market, this is what we need to do what you need us to do. And you haven't valued us enough. So can you dissect what you've just said and help people understand why the C market is a better value proposition for somebody at 250 than the specialty market is?
Yeah, there's quite a lot going on, but we dangled this carrot in front of producers, which they were chasing and investing a lot of time. It takes, mind you, it takes a lot of effort, especially for the average producer, to understand what target to hit to be specialty, right? And targets are moving all the time. And most producers don't. I mean, for me, coffee is a formula. Okay, it's genetics plus terroir plus management, and it every year is different, but it's a formula. Most producers don't think that way. But let's say that to make specialty coffee, let's say 85 plus or 86 plus, you really got to pick really well. You got to process really well. You need to really take a lot of care. And that's sometimes an extra 15, 20 days on the patio. Right. That's more people, that's paying more for people to pick slower. That's more people. There's very little labor left We're all fighting
In
for
coffee.
labor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's things that, arguably are, what's the word? Sensitive topics, but specialty coffee buyers expect so much more of specialty coffee producers, to the point of like officially registering pickers and socially taking care of all of that, where farmers don't have to register temporary workers. I do. It costs me 10% more. I pay taxes and all that stuff, and I have to have all this. I do also. I do that on a values level, but all of these things, when you add, where farmers could just let coffee fall on the ground, sweep it up, pick it all green, throw it in a mechanical dryer in 2 days, drive it down, get paid right away. And then you have extra terms at the co-op and all that stuff.
What role does the co-op play, Felipe? That's an important part for people to understand as well.
Yeah. Well, the co-ops, there's lots of different models, but that model came with the Green Revolution and very much pushed by America, the US, and the co-op became this octopus of lots of different tentacles. It buys your coffee based on a C mark, and processes it. I mean, there's a co-op next to me, the biggest in the world. Cooperatives is down the road, 20 minutes. They process 6 million bags.
Wow.
You mean you walk and it's like, they're very proud. They give you a tour like, this is the equivalent of all the coffee in Kenya for a year. This is the equivalent all the coffee of Costa Rica in a year. Wow. And you get a ticket. So your coffee goes in, you can get your coffee back. You're not getting your coffee back. You're getting an equivalent of your coffee. Yeah. Okay. But they will pay you up front. They will hedge for you. You can lock in futures. And their business model is also based on giving loans, selling fertilizers, all kinds of stuff. So, arguably, they've been good and bad for producers. But a lot of producers are sort of also stuck in debt for a lot of reasons. But we've created this beautiful specialty industry in the last 20 something years, which is a little more direct, and there's a little more equity. There's no equity in co-op system. You're a price taker, right? And so there's a little more equity in specialty, and it ranges like from also little to more. For me, equity is about putting everybody on the table and having a discussion about what's good for everyone, not like I'm paying more. I'm paying more is still, I'm still deciding to pay you more. That is nice. That's not equitable.
Right.
But I'm rambling. But basically, at 250, we work with about 3,000 farms at FAF. We talk to and work and give courses and cup around 3,000 farms, and we buy on an average year from between 500 to 600 farms. And there's different levels of relationships, right? There are people that are, a lot of my producers, I mean, been working for so long and so connected on a values level, and so many roasters visiting and everything. They're going to do specialty always, and they're delivering coffee and everything just out of love, right? But then people that are just like, there's a lot of producers that are over 60 years old, and they don't want to work so hard, and they're tired, and their back hurts, and they can't hire people, and so they're like, I don't have any coffee for you this year. What do you mean you don't have any coffee for me this year? Your cherries, I saw the cherries on pre.
If I understand it correctly, what you're saying is that at this very interesting 250 point on the C market that we've reached, the people who typically, because you work in specialty, the people who would typically deliver you coffee are turning around and saying, I don't want to work this hard this year. Or the value proposition that the C market presents me in freeing up a lot of my time, because I don't have to pick so carefully and I don't have to go seek the labor. I don't have to do all of those things. I need that more than having to give you coffee.
Yeah, both. Because I mean, you can save a lot of money by picking easier,
by strip picking,
and just worse than strip picking, just picking it all off at once
and ground. Wow.
green and sweeping and mechanical dryer as opposed to other kinds of drying and not being as careful. So we're tasting a lot more problems in cups and stuff like that. So, and then roasters are pushing back, and it's like, okay, if we hit this number of 87, we can get any price. But if it hits 86.75, you're on your own. And then, okay. And then it's like, ooh, that's a hard bargain right there. You know what I mean? And then,
It's so ridiculous. It's so fucking ridiculous. It just,
I work
when
with,
you say it like that, it's so pompous.
well, I understand.
You're not being
I
pompous.
understand
What
it
I'm saying is, say it again.
I understand it. So like, okay, for me, the best roaster in the world right now is Say Coffee, and New York, and I work with them, and they have a hard 87, and they pay amazing prices, and they roast incredible, and they're not elitists at all, but what they're doing is elitist because, and they can do it because they've got rich New Yorkers, rich Americans paying for this, and I understand it. And like Lance and Tobin and Graham, they're not elitist people at all. They're super down to earth. They're just doing it for the love of coffee, and there's a place for that, but it is a hard target to hit.
Word.
And then a lot of the industry is like, yeah, we're just not doing as many, micro lots. We're doing a lot of blends now. And yeah. And so it's like, they're not buying. Yeah. This year, we're not going to buy so much 85. We're going to buy this. And then they're like pushing us, squeezing us. We're like, the 5% more I'm paying for that farmer to do an 84. It's just not, they're like, it's just not worth it. 250. Now, if we go into scenario C, which is close, 260 to 293, not only will producers quit specialty right now, but they'll quit for the next 3 years because they'll
help
sell.
us understand that.
Because they'll sell, they'll lock in their coffee commodity markets for the next 3 years.
And you can do that. Can you do that? Can you turn around and say, okay, I'm going to sell you at this price all of my coffee for the next 3 years?
You can. I mean, I don't know how it is in other places, but Brazilian farmers are getting more and more educated about hedging, and they're getting, and I work with family farms, so it's not so common, but I'm working with some bigger farms now, and it's getting more common, and quite frankly, it's important to know. And again, shame on me for not knowing this earlier. I'm studying like crazy. My head is exploding because I need to offer to my producers. If I need to be ready, because if the C market hits 3, my phone is going to go off the hook.
Yeah.
And producers want me to hedge for them.
Yeah.
And so I need to sell a future contract so that I can do that for them. Same as if the C market goes down a lot, maybe I can buy futures for my roasters, and I can provide for both of them targets that they can hit. And we should be looking at what that means and how do we hit those targets together, as well as looking at long-term goals. What do we want to achieve by 2030? What do we want to achieve by 2040? How to achieve sustainability on that end? Or like instead of hedging, we should look at fixing with producers coffees so that they don't just sell to the co-op and be like, okay, let's sit and let's work out a contract here that is good for roaster and farmer. And what is the parameter that we're going to use? Are we going to adjust based on inflation, or what are we going to what are the parameters? What are we going to do here? And so that we can all sort of work and focus on the things we like. But if the C market keeps going up, there's going to be less and less good coffee. And then there's the base price, which is the price on the ground. And that's going to go up because everyone's fighting for the coffee that's good, that's left. And then it's just like a snowball of roasters switching their blends quality down again, like to maybe commodity. And then the value proposition to the consumer is practically gone. Because the few people who drink black espresso or Americano or whatever, and, batch brew, and they're like, wow, that's crap. Let me put half and half back in this, And then it's like, we've totally lost the black coffee drinkers again. Or they're like, I can't tell the difference between this and Folgers. Like, you know what I mean? And it's just a snowball effect. So, it's a dangerous price that we need to be careful with, because we need to take it serious. Like this, the C market could go down. It could go down, but not taking a decision is speculating. By not having a strategy, you are speculating, and that's what roasters need to understand.
And that's the secret sauce, because we've got one more scenario to explore, and we'll do that in a second. But the point that you're very eloquently making here is that if you start to look at all the scenarios that are in front of us, you start to be able to have a game plan, whether you're a producer or you're a roaster or you're a cafe or you're the middleman. Taking a very clear understanding and having a game plan for, well, what if this happens? And what if this happens? And what if this happens? And what if this happens? Because with the parameters that you've set, I think that all four of them are different worlds. They're not even slightly close to each other with the level of volatility that we've got in the market. Because when we start to get to scenario C, now all of a sudden what we've got is a fundamental shift in the specialty coffee market the whole way through. Now what you've got is a complete evisceration, and that will accelerate, of the supply of specialty coffee. And what happens to the George Howells and the Proud Marys and the Stitch Coffees of the world then, right? What happens when it comes to fruition that supply is down, and they have been trying, they spent the last 10, 20, 30 years cultivating a customer base that is very focused on really good quality coffee. Well, now we need to have a conversation about co-fermented coffees, because they're about as close as you're getting to the coffee that the consumer has been accustomed to drinking, because the alternative isn't quite going to cut it, because there's none left, right?
Yeah. With all due respect, I don't really care for co-fermented coffees. I don't really think it's a thing. It's like infused beer. It exists. It's out there. I just expect it to say this beer is infused with peach. Yep. Some people buy it, some don't. I really don't see added value in it. I don't enjoy it. Move on. Next. I really don't care, because I don't see that as my personal love for coffee. Right. And again, I think as a business owner, you should be clear about your values and your politics. I'm sure a roastery could pop up tomorrow and be 100% co-fermented.
As long as they're saying that.
I'm not going to tell you not to do it. I'm not going to tell you you're not going to have success. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would drink it. There's a lot of people that would hate it. Who are we to say yes or no? I don't care. But I don't see any value in that. And to me, that's not the beauty in agricultural product. Right. And I don't really think much of it.
Right.
I'm just glad that it's not as like last year in Athens, World of Coffee, it was like everywhere. And this year it's like people are starting to get over it. So
And what I'm saying is that perhaps as the supply goes down, as we get into scenario C and scenario D, we now have a fundamental shift in the way that cafes have to adapt to the scenario. And what I have experienced in 20 years in coffee is that you end up getting the people who occupy the big microphones telling the market what they should be doing, rather than people saying, how do I listen to my customer? Not to what people who sell you frozen balls are saying, right? I would rather that you thought about what you need and how you can adapt to your business rather than what the tastemakers in the industry are selling you so that they can hedge against the money that they're losing. Now, let's talk about scenario D. Everyone is welcome to read between all of the lines that were written in that last little explosion of what I just said. It's all there, and many Easter eggs. So, scenario D.
Okay, scenario D, I said is above $3, right? And if we look at what happened in Cacao, I think we can learn a lot of lessons from that. And I think that when people noticed there wasn't going to be enough cacao for everyone, a whole lot of things happened. People started hoarding and buying a lot, big buyers, and that drove price up. And then all of a sudden, Bloomberg starts talking about cacao. We have a scenario very different than 20 years ago. We have a lot of speculators trading commodity. We have a scenario of maybe it's hard to invest right now. I mean, I guess the US in the stock market keeps going up, mainly based on sort of AI boom, but most companies are having a hard time getting returns. Most people are losing money on their investments in their stock market. So commodities are, we have, again, those macro scenarios. We have high inflation, and we have relatively low growth, and we have high interest rates. So it's confusing. We're sort of in this middle area of economics, and we're just sort of we're kind of stuck in this scenario where like interest rates don't go down and the economy is kind of hot, but it's like, where do we invest our money right now? It's like, do we keep them in sort of easy treasury bond things, or do we put them in commodities? All of a sudden is like attractive to a day trader. And so if people start talking about coffee, it's like all of a sudden, these spikes can happen, which are totally erratic. Like we would say that the market corrects itself intelligently, supply and demand, but we forget that there's millions of erratic people that make. So I think we should be, speculators, and we should be prepared for spikes up and down. And we don't want to get caught needing coffee at a high spike. Again, don't take my word for it. Go do your homework, talk to a lot of people. But my personal opinion is I don't think we're in the same scenario as cacao, because cacao is very concentrated in small amount of countries, and it's a very, very big problem in terms of supply that's going to take a long time to fix. I think coffee has a lot of good things going for it. It's a lot spread out through a lot of countries. And, I think like we're not even talking about the good things that are happening, like in, coffee hot takes and blah, 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 all that kind of, crap that's going on. But like, for example,
that was fantastic, Felipe.
We're giving out shots left and right. I would say that, for example, in Brazil, the single most amazing thing that's happened is the institutes, principally Procafé, has in the last 20 years began cupping coffee. Now they're creating varieties that taste good, and that they're resistant and they're high yield, and to the point where we're fundamentally changing Brazilian coffee. Now, to say that that's on a country level, on a 70 million bag production level, that is insane. How do you fundamentally change? So 90% of Brazilian coffee has always been two varieties, Catuai and Mundo Novo, because they produced, right? Now we have two varieties, Arara and Catucai. A lot of other ones, but we have two varieties which are leaf rust resistant. They taste a whole lot better than Catuai and Mundo Novo. And they're more adapted to the climates that we're working on. And they produce 20-30% more.
Oh, wow.
And the nurseries are full of them, full. Everyone's planting these. So on the whole, in Brazil, we're talking about an increase of yield, an increase of cup score. So I don't think we're in a long-term doomsday kind of thing. But we have issues. I think in the short term, I'm worried about the roaster. In the long term, I'm worried about the producer again, because climate will keep getting hotter. Irrigation is only a short-term solution. We need to make these big situations, but we have amazing, and no one's talking about this. No one's talking about the biggest country in the world fundamentally changing all of their coffee for the better. Like, no one's talking about this. So, I think that there's like a colonial aspect to coffee where the voices are controlled by the global north and the consuming, and even if it's like not on purpose, it's just that it's just what's the word?
Ignorance.
Not knowing, ignorance. Yeah, it's controlling the whole dialogue of everything that's happening, and we need a space to be able to decolonize that mindset in so many different ways. But I think that the scenario D, I mean, we have EUDR, which is really insane to throw this on this year. We still don't have like a full
no clarity around that. It's going to be probably the biggest shit show that ever hit coffee, I think.
Yeah, we have an American election, which is very insane. We have logistics, which is going to get worse because, especially Europeans are going to start importing like crazy to stock, and so, you kind of have a little similarity to cacao, which is a rush to buy in stock.
Yeah.
Not because in cacao was because it was going to take 5 years. It's going to take 5 years to produce more. In coffee, it's because of legislation. So it's this sort of, and then, I think high prices are the medicine to high prices, right? Because a scenario D will dramatically affect the consumption of coffee, which will bring the price back down.
Right.
But you don't want to get caught out without a plan, meaning you're speculating on where the market's going to go because you're just sitting there like, yeah, you know what? Markets go up and down. Okay.
That's what
good luck.
A big percentage of people are going to do. Which is why we're in the scenario that we're in. I'm hoping that you're calling what?
I'm calling every single customer and explaining that, and some of them are like, well, I'm on holidays until end of August. I'm like, okay.
Good for you, bro. Don't call me back.
Yeah. We can lock everything in. And we can make strategies, we can finance, we can hold the coffees, as well as other, but we should be looking at what's the Vietnam harvest going to be like, what's the Colombian harvest looking like, what's going on around the world. At certain points, it's like, do you want to risk? Do you want to gamble? Or do you look at all of the strategies you have? Maybe it's a little bit more expensive than that you were expecting. And you have to bite the bullet, raise your prices. But how do we do this? We can help you. Is it a newsletter? Is it a story? It's not fun to give bad news. I'm giving bad news. Let's say I'm giving the news, and you do it as you will. Every single day, more than 6 to 8 calls a day,
wow.
And explain these things. If I can help you explain to your customer, information does not move down the supply chain.
No.
Roasters do not inform their customers anything of what's going on in coffee. And that's part of the problem, because when customers get bad news, they're just like, what? Where did that come from?
And we're the last ones to raise the prices, right? Bread goes up, milk goes up, beer goes up, meat goes up, veg goes up. And we somehow think that we should be taking care of the customer by not putting the prices up. What the fuck?
Why? Customer who's every roaster has one of this. That big guy who does volume, who's breaking your balls.
Yeah.
Have you informed them what's going on in coffee?
No.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So how are you going to raise your price if you just come out of nowhere? So it's like, can we help you talk about, climate issues, whatever, all this and that. And then, is it easier to factor in a 3% raise and then lock that in over the next year? Help that person as well, like give them a couple months for them to prepare and marinate on that idea. and bring them into the conversation. We need to engage people. People need to participate in the supply chain, and we need to educate people that. And for that, that's why I go back to green coffee departments are not just about cupping. You need to educate yourself about what's going on in the industry, and you educate down the line, more than this coffee tastes like purple. Like, you need to tell people what is going on. And so
otherwise you might not survive.
Otherwise you're just like, I can't pay that. And it's like, well, I can't, what, I mean, like, people are literally, people are like, I'm like, oh, that's coffee's too expensive. I'm like, what price do you need? They're like, $2.30. I'm like, the market's $2.50.
Yeah, exactly. The
I'm
entitlement,
like,
the entitlement and the ignorance is embarrassing. There's no other industry where you have to carry your customer like this. It doesn't happen in broccoli. It doesn't happen in mangoes. It doesn't happen in alcohol. It doesn't happen anywhere. If I'm selling you a product and you can't afford it, you can't have the product. It's kind of that. It's ignorance. And where this stems from is people thinking that because we have this low barrier to entry, you know, I worked at a roastery. I'm a really great roaster. I can ask my parents for some money. I'm going to go and open a roastery in my parents' garage. And that's how I'm going to build this business. These people don't have any understanding of business. And now they've happened by some dumb luck to build a business that seems to be making some money, and they haven't learnt about the supply chain.
I think the best salespeople in coffee, whether it's green coffee, whether it's a roastery, they have to understand about origin.
Right. And that's where we
have to be able to talk about origin.
Well, and this is where I want to take the conversation to the middleman, because the whole point that we have a middleman, which is either a green trader or a green buyer, is because it's part of their job to help be engaged with what's going on at origin and to communicate that story to the roaster or to the customer if they're a green buyer that's in a roasting company. So let's have that conversation in the next episode, because these poor guys have been listening to us for almost 40 minutes already. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate it.
Everyone.
Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day, folks. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.